Yo, what stood out to me, I don't know if you've ever been to Joshua Tree, but she
No.
talks about the climb that she did at Joshua's Tree, called Trespassers Will Be Violated. Now, I've only been bouldering in Joshua Tree.
So you've happened to a
They
national park. Were you
oh,
in?
but not as a child, but yes. Okay, fine, 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 fine. Yes, I've been to a national park. All right, welcome to the first numero uno um episode of Books and Boulders. I am Tiff,
I'm Melanie.
and yeah, we're here to talk all things books and all things bouldering. So, how you doing, Mel? How is the life?
How am I? How am I? I don't know if you've ever seen that meme from Broad
Air quotes for
City.
those who are listening.
Yeah. I'm doing all right. I'm glad it's Friday, feeling very TGIF. Um, yeah. Tonight I'm going to see BAMF. The BAMF Film Festival is coming to
Hmm.
Albuquerque. So my
Oh,
gym,
nice.
the gym that I climb at, they host screenings. So I'll be going to BAMF this evening. So I'm looking forward to that. Outside of that, I've just been kind of chilling. I don't know, getting through the day. That sounds so depressing, but no, this week I think I've just been trying to I don't know, be excited and motivated. And I think reading has been helping. Haven't had any major adventures, but I'm hoping to get some stuff going this week, like do some bike riding or that sort of thing.
I was in the gym this week, and I don't. It's not even like I can't climb because the problem is difficult. I just feel weak.
Yeah.
Like, I guess I just remember Tiffany from 5 years ago when my back was like, "Pow, pow, pow," and now it's just like, "Poo, poo." Like, it's just not happening,
Hmm.
and I don't know, I know I don't have any power. I've learned that I guess I need to start training power again.
Like
Um,
dynamic style
yeah.
movement. Yeah.
But like those quick contact moves, not like I'm doing dynos, because if anybody knows me, I don't dyno.
Right.
That's just not how I live my life.
Same.
It's also how I've managed to not get injured while bouldering. I personally believe
Hmm.
I don't do high balls and I don't do dynos. And
Hmm.
so all the high risk bouldering I stay far, far away from. But I don't know. I guess it just had me kind of feeling down because I'm like thinking of days past and when I used to be strong and now I just feel so weak. But I know it's consistency, so it's fine. Onward, upward. I'm going to keep climbing and I think I'm just gonna start rope climbing in the gym that I go to that has the ability to do ropes
Hmm.
and just try to build up my endurance because I just feel super weak.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's huge. Yeah. I think similarly, like I don't know. For me, I've definitely been struggling with like consistency when it comes to climbing. Um, but yeah, just trying to at least hold myself accountable to going twice a week. So I went yesterday evening, and like I kind of just putzed around with some friends. I maybe did like 3 rounds, but I'm gonna try to go today. And speaking of power training, I think I might actually try to do some bouldering. So yeah, and I feel really fortunate that my gym has auto belays. Like I feel like
Mhm.
I've been to quite a few climbing gyms and most of them do not have auto belays. So yeah, I'll probably do some auto belays and then some bouldering. But I agree. I'm trying to like just train and feel in it. Like I don't know. It's hard. It's been hard to feel like really, really in it with climbing lately. But hopefully with the weather changing, we'll feel like that girl again. We'll see.
Yeah, and we get back outside. I don't know, something about the gym is starting to just, like, not be it for me. Like,
Yeah.
the whole energy in the gym just feels like it's shifting in some weird way.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's just shifting with the world, as the world is shifting, but it just the vibes are not vibing for me in the gym.
Yeah.
And, I mean, mind you, I climb at, like, 8 a.m., so
Ooh.
it's never a vibe. It's usually just me, but I'm okay with that. I actually love being
It's
alone in the gym.
nice.
I think the social aspect of climbing has been so low on my radar. Like I
Yeah,
haven't gone to a social climbing thing intentionally in a while, so
yeah,
that's probably something I could work on.
I hear that.
We'll see next episode where that goes.
Well, should we dive into some book discussion?
I I think it's time. I think it's time.
Okay. I think we mentioned on our teaser episode that the next couple of episodes are going to be discussing Climbing Free by Lynn Hill. So yeah. I like Tiff's hardback version. You like my paperback, but I
My
really
my
like yours.
my library version.
I like the cover of yours. Like I feel like you get like just a bigger sort of landscape and it's nice. But yeah, we'll be reading Climbing Free by Lynn Hill. Um I'll try my best to give a quick sort of description of what this book is about. So it's like a memoir slash autobiography about Lynn Hill, who is recognized as one of the greatest climbers of all time. And that's kind of all I should. That's kind of all
Had you had you had you heard of Lynn Hill?
I had heard
Or
of
like
Lynn Hill. I watched Valley Uprising.
what's that? That a movie?
Yeah, it's a documentary about climbing, and I think they talk a little bit
Okay.
about Lynn Hill um, in that book. It's more definitely focuses more on men and the achievements of men, but I do think that Lynn Hill was one of the few female climbers that they featured, and it talks about just the kind of like the birth of the culture of climbing in
Mhm.
Yosemite. Um, so it was a good movie, but that's where I first heard of her. And I know I'm very familiar with her famous quote, "It goes, boys." Just so fun to say.
You know so much more
What,
than I
really?
do, and I'm the one who recommended the book. That's hilarious. Like, I had never heard of Lynn Hill, like,
Really?
until I picked that book up. And it's funny because now I'm really into competition climbing. Obviously, I wasn't into competition climbing in the I guess, like, her heyday may have been around the '80s or something
Mhm,
because I was probably a toddler at
mhm.
that point, so and obviously because I didn't know about climbing until well into adulthood. But as someone who loves competition climbing, I don't really know a lot of the historical female climbers in of the world, I guess. I
Mhm.
mean, not America, not anywhere else. So I know who's popping now,
Yeah.
but I don't know about back then. So yeah, I didn't know anything about her, and to be honest, I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know like how I would feel about this lady. Like just because you're a climber and just because you're a woman doesn't mean like I would connect or resonate with you. So I think reading the first few chapters, which is about all I've read even previous to this,
Mhm.
I feel like I have so much in common with this woman.
Yeah.
It's so wild. I mean,
Cool.
there's a lot of ways I don't, but a lot of ways I feel like I do. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about kind of some of the similarities and the ways that things resonate. I mean, for me, I think the most obvious thing is just like being a woman and climbing. But I know there's like other personal experiences that you've had that, if you feel like getting into, I would love to hear more about kind of like those similarities. But yeah, I didn't really know a ton about her. I kind of like having it that way. Like I kind of like I
Mhm.
know that she's obviously a very accomplished climber. I know that she's done a lot in Yosemite and a lot at what is it, Half Dome? Well, maybe I should wait. Fact check me. But I know that she's done a ton of climbing in Yosemite and some first ascents, and is definitely just like one of the most accomplished climbers of certainly our generation, or that's alive during our generation. But yeah, I don't really know too much about about her entire resume and everything that she has actually done. So I kind of like that, and I'm kind of excited to go into this a little bit unaware and to learn more about uh what she's done and her contributions to the sport of climbing, and also the way that she's paved the way for women to be recognized in climbing and be able to kind of like, yeah, feel like they are equals in the sport of climbing. Um, yeah, so I guess maybe we should get into some deeper dives about the book. So
Chapter
yeah.
1.
So this week we're discussing chapters 1 through 3. So yeah, let's just get into chapter 1, The Perfect Fall.
Oh
Um
my goodness.
so
Trigger warning, trigger warning.
yeah.
This is a lot for some
Yeah,
people like me.
totally. Yeah, I guess to be more specific, like trigger warning in the sense that it talks about injury and yeah, just
Near
very
death
risky, yeah, near
experiences.
death experiences. So yeah, just listener discretion advised. In this chapter, she takes us through a life-threatening fall that she took while she was climbing in France. It was a super simple mistake. She didn't tie her knot properly, and it could have cost her life easily. But she miraculously managed to walk away with pretty minor injuries. Like I think she said she didn't even have any
Yeah.
broken bones, just like a dislocated shoulder. Um, and I think, yeah, at that point, she kind of had a turning point where she kind of decided to reevaluate, I think, her relationship with climbing, but then also it spurred a lot of their thoughts about reevaluating some of the decisions that she makes beyond climbing and the way that she lives her life beyond climbing. I don't know. I mean, I have definitely a lot of thoughts. My first thought is just that it's wild to think about the fact that, right, like she's in at this point, I don't remember what year she said that happened, but by this point, uh, I think she started climbing in like the late 70s.
Yeah, her I know her first climbing experience was 1975. So
Right,
this is definitely well after that point
right.
because at this point she's clearly so comfortable, and this is a real thing, and it's I know it's kind of like a hot topic almost because I think this actually has happened in the gym. This happens in the gym from a auto belay situation. And, people will be like, well, how can you not know that you tied in? Or how can you not know that you clipped the auto belay into your harness and be climbing and not realize it? And for me, I don't judge because I use climbing as an escape, as a mental release. And so if somebody's brain is so wired about something, which for her, she was in that moment, she was thinking a lot about her upcoming European climbing competition that she was really excited about.
Mhm,
And then somebody started speaking to her as she was tying in. It is easy to get distracted.
mhm,
And I don't fault or judge anybody for it, but at the same time, it's really it comes to me, and I think this chapter resonates with me because I had a fall, and it is kind of this belayer climber relationship,
yeah,
and I know people are so much more stringent about it now than I think when she took this fall, where it's like doing your ABCs and really checking and making sure, and not just it being on you, the climber, but even as the belayer,
yeah,
like I'm responsible for your life. I'm responsible to make sure that you're also okay and safe. And so it should be this two-way street. And again, this is no shade to Lynn's belayer at the
yeah,
time or anything like that. But it is just kind of one of these things of like, I personally cannot imagine ever being so distracted that I forget to tie in.
mhm,
But I'm also now permanently marked. I'm sure for her, that is something that never ever happened to her again. I
mhm,
mean, she probably quadruple checked
mhm,
her belay or her making sure she's tied in every single time. I am so triggered by the idea of falling again that even when I'm climbing, I look down again, even though I know
to
I
make
checked like
sure.
3 times. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, and mind you, I didn't fall because my belay came undone, but once you have a fall, you kind of start to think about everything that could go wrong. It's really hard to like shift your brain back into I'm out here and enjoying it for climbing's sake. Like I don't know if there's like a fall climber club,
Mm,
of people who just because I feel like only it has to have happened to you to really understand how it affects you moving forward.
like taking a big
Espe
fall and being hurt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think taking a fall and it being scary is one thing, but taking a fall that somehow impacts you, like having to be carried out on a stretcher
Mhm.
or an ambulance or in my case a helicopter, like
Yeah.
having all those, it's just it imprints on you.
Yeah.
And it's just not something that you really ever lose. I mean, or maybe you do. I mean, I'm only 4 years removed, not even,
Yeah.
from my fall, so I'd be curious, Lynn, how, if it
Definitely.
even still, like, if this is something that's always in the back of her mind every time she ties in.
Yeah, I wonder yeah, that is definitely an interesting point. Because I mean, this happened probably sometime in the '80s. It's interesting that I don't think she mentions the year that this happened.
I didn't see the year either because I feel like I would've wrote it down, but
Yeah.
yeah.
But certainly, uh, I think that it was, like, somewhere in the middle of her climbing, and so I mean, I think that probably one of the biggest differences between her experience and yours is that she somehow managed to walk away with, like, no injuries, like,
72 feet!
yeah, yeah, she basically forgot to tie her, essentially.
And they said she, like the witnesses was like she bounced in the air, had to have been like 3 feet in the air when she hit the ground. I mean, I think one of the things though, as she was falling, she kinda recalls, like, being really intentional about, like, being prepared to tuck and roll. I think which, mind you, as quickly as everything happened for her to be hyper aware of trying to figure out, like, the best way to fall or how,
Yeah.
because I think she probably saved her own life, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it sounds like it. Like, being able to land in a bush, so, yeah, after she fell, in midair, like, it's crazy how the brain like, the mind and a human body science is wild. So, but it's just pretty crazy how she could have such, like, relatively complex thoughts in, like, I mean, like, fractions of a second. Um, and yeah, she managed to, like, land a tree, and I think that that definitely I'm curious, yeah, I think that that definitely, like, saved her life. I should look I would love to see, like, what the landscape in general around that area
Mm.
looked like, if she was on the cliffside or something like that, and, like, if she hadn't landed, could she have fallen, like, even further from the belay, like, further down, or I don't know, like, how that all could have gone, but, yeah, I definitely think that she, like, managed to save her own life, but still the fact that she basically sustained no injuries is insane to me, and I am curious just, like, mentally, because like, I haven't been injured, like, I haven't had an injury that serious, but I've definitely sprained ankles, and that is, like, once I, like, finally get back to climbing after recovering from that injury, it definitely has been, like, a mental process of, like, even just, like, going 2 or 3 feet off the ground, it's like, "This is really scary," and, like, mentally allowing myself to, like, climb like, without letting fear get in the way, it took a long time for me to, like, get comfortable, like, climbing and taking more risks. And I'm just wondering, like, yeah, what was that process? And maybe she'll get into it later in the book, but I'm wondering, like, did she have that moment of, like, this is really scary and that fear sort of consumed her and she had to work through that relationship with, like, fear, and anxiety after post-injury? Um, yeah, I don't uh,
Yeah, yeah, and I don't and yeah, because we're not, like, in those next stages. I don't even know how it impacted her competition climbing moving forward or just, like, recreationally climbing because it seemed like she was really big into climbing with her partners,
mhm,
and, I'm curious how that happened because 'cause I'm pretty sure her belayer was her spouse or significant other
mhm,
at the time, and, that affects belayer climber relationships. I don't
totally.
know, I hope in my, my French travels this summer, maybe I
Yes.
can go to is it pronounced? I don't know if it's pronounced
You asking the
buh?
wrong one.
I
Yeah.
I I'm working on my French right now,
Yeah.
but, I know everything is very like, they don't pronounce any vowels whatsoever like
Interesting.
Americans, so,
Yeah.
but yeah, they specify the wall, especially because it was so dark, like, the name of the wall
Hmm.
was, like, Sticks Wall,
Right? Yes.
yeah, and then the name of the climb
Oh,
also had this, like, dark omen, and so it was like,
yes.
if you believe in omens and things that were kind of, like, foreshadowing something happening, I just yeah, I just felt that energy like, "Oh my goodness, no."
Yeah. That kind of brings me into so like I know we wanted to talk about some of the themes that kind of came up and one of the things that I was thinking about was like just kind of listening to intuition because it sounds like in retrospect, like there were, like you mentioned, like a lot of different sort of signs that like, maybe like the sticks wall. God, there were the name of the route itself, which I think I can't quite remember, but I know she mentioned that too.
Oh, wait, I have it. It's Buffet Freud.
Okay, maybe that.
Buffet Freud.
There were
Yeah,
three
it's basically
things.
it means cold buffet in French.
Oh, right. And she said it was like a
Yeah.
meal that's served like during a funeral or something like that
After a
after a
funeral. Yep,
funeral.
yep. Yeah, it's like when we go to a repast,
Right.
uh, in America, they have you go and eat food, after a funeral, so I
Right.
guess it's like if I call to climb repast, I don't know, but
Right, right,
yeah.
right, and then I thought there might have been something else, but either way, like, though even those 2 things, like, she kinda mentioned retrospectively that, like, you know, these are signs that maybe she should like, in retrospect, it was like, "Oh, like, maybe those were kind of like some omens or some signs that, like, this wasn't my day or this wasn't the right route for me to climb." Um But it made me think about just, like, listening to intuition and also just, like, how do we know when it's time to bail on a climbing day? Like, I don't know if you've ever had that feeling, but I've definitely had feelings of, like, going out climbing and I get on the wall, like, even before I start climbing, I have, like, a lot of anxiety, and I have anxiety when I climb in general. I think that's, like, to some extent part of the excitement about climbing and the fun of it. But it was like a particular type of anxiety. And I was just like, something just doesn't quite feel right. And I got on the wall and I was climbing and I was like, this still isn't quite feeling right. And normally I'm able to like manage fear relatively well in the moment. But I was just able to do that. And so I ended up bailing on the climb and coming down. But I'm just wondering, like, yeah, I feel like intuition is an important part of climbing and
Yeah.
knowing when it's time to call it and say, like, this is not the day for this.
Yeah, I mean, this is so difficult because on the day of the climb where I had my big fall, I actually wanted to go bouldering that day, and I can't remember why we didn't. Now, when we talk about signs,
Mm.
I have a photo of me pretending like I am surfing on the orange board that carries an injured climber out
Mm.
of the crag. So at this climbing area, this is in West Virginia, Summersville, New River Gorge, they which to me, something should tell you that if they have to have the actual safety mechanisms chained up along the path,
Hmm.
that people might get hurt here.
Right.
People get hurt here on some sort of regularity
Right.
for them to need to do that. And so, it was almost like I was mocking injury
Mm.
by taking that photo and, like, pretending like I'm surfing on this thing that I ultimately ended up on in a couple 2 hours later,
Mm.
which to me is kinda wild, and then we climb a route, and I told you last time on the last episode that it was loose, that the, and so it kinda was just like, "Maybe this isn't a good area to be," you know?
I don't think I realized that
And
that was like on the route that you were climbing. You found that screw or that bolt.
yeah, it was like it was the first climb we did was that climb that had the loose bolt,
Yeah.
and then maybe we climbed one other thing as a group, and then I, being at that point cocky Tiff, like, oh, I want to go a little harder. And so the climb that I fell on, called Chunko Goes Bowling, it's wild because you'll never forget the name of the climb that you got hurt on.
Mm.
And so the climb that I got hurt on, I it was like a 5'9", but on Mountain Project, everybody said, "No, it's super stiff, it's way harder than a 5'9", but I didn't read that information, and I didn't know that.
Mm.
So I thought I was going into something, I'm like, "I could do a 5'9", like, I'm on-sighting 5'9s easy." That was not a 5'9".
Mhm.
And there was a moment where I probably could have bailed out, but my ego didn't let me. I was actually hanging onto my quick draw because I got my quick draw in, I just didn't get the rope into the quick draw.
Mhm.
And so I coulda literally just hung on that quick draw and clipped myself in, but again, it was my ego, like, "I don't wanna cheat, that's cheating, you can't hang on the quick draw."
Mhm.
Trust me, every single day of my life, I wish I hung on that quick draw,
Yeah.
like, the level of regret, and so it was humbling because it was just like, that was my ego, and I don't know, sometimes it just brings you back down to earth, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
literally and figuratively.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's very interesting. 'Cause it sounds like and it she sort of mentioned in chapter 2, which we haven't gotten to yet, but she sort of mentions in chapter 2, like
We can jump to chapter 2. I think we're
yeah,
at a good, I mean, nothing much happened in that chapter other than leading up to her fall, and we
yeah,
don't know a lot about her recovery, what happened with her climbing after it because, chapter 2 takes a shift.
yeah, it kinda turns in a different direction, and I'm sure she'll get back to it, I hope. Um, but yeah, just specifically made me think of a moment where she was, like, kind of, like, working through the crux on a difficult climb. I think it was a multi-pitch that she was doing, and she talks about how she could have, like, grabbed onto the bolt to, like, get to, like, a good position to clip, and she decided not to. And in her case, it was fine, like and she decided not to because she felt like it was cheating and it was, like, bad climbing style, and in her case, I think it ended up working out okay, but I don't know. I have, like, a lot of thoughts and feelings on, like, the quote unquote ethics of climbing and, like, the culture around climbing and, "Oh, don't grab the
Or the
bolt."
rules.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, like what
aid.
you're supposed to do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I said I'm gonna make a T-shirt,
Yeah.
and if somebody steals it, that's fine, I don't care. But I was like, I'm gonna make a T-shirt, and instead of it saying, like, "Climb hard," it's just gonna be "Climb happy."
Mm.
Because we're so obsessed with climbing hard, like,
Yes.
but then hard leads to these things that make you unhappy. Like, I
Right.
just wanna climb and be happy and enjoy it. And I mean, it depends on what you're climbing for. Obviously, if you're climbing to chase grades or get stronger or push the limits, there's always risk involved, and it is what it is. But for me, I I yeah, I'm not there,
Yeah.
and I don't think I'll ever be there again.
Yeah.
So,
I don't really think I wanna be there. Like, I feel like a lot of my injuries the 2 injuries that I've gotten have come from, like, just not listening to my body and climbing harder than I really feel like I should have in the moment and trying to prove something. Like, I feel like, especially as a Black woman in climbing, like, for at least the first 3 years of climbing, I felt like I had to prove something. Felt like I had to prove to myself and to other people that, like, I belonged here and that I was good enough. Um, and I think that a lot of people probably struggle with that. Like, I think that in some ways that defines the culture of climbing. Um, so yeah, I don't know, but I've started to get to an experience of just like, I don't get paid for this. It's not my job. It's
yeah.
really just not that deep. Like, it's just a hobby and something that I do that should be fun. And the moment it stops becoming fun and like rewarding and fulfilling and it feels like an obligation, um, that means that I'm doing something wrong and I need to change. So, yeah, I have been like I feel like that's like an ongoing thing that I'm like working on and like an ongoing like pattern of self-talk that I'm working on. Um, but yes, I definitely feel you. Um, Cool. Well, okay. I mean, we've kind of already started dabbling on chapter 2, so I guess let's just dive on in. Chapter 2 is called The Early Days. And so she's sort of like, I think what she's doing in chapter 1 is maybe like just hooking us in, like something really crazy and dramatic that kind of hooks us in. And I think she'll circle back to it. But in chapter 2, she kind of like pivots and talks more about her upbringing in Southern California. She talks about being a part of a huge family, 7
Yeah.
children is insane. No, okay, my mind is like, how do people afford? And her dad, I think, was in school um at the time.
7 kids and in California and in the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's from what I read, it sounded like maybe only one of her parents was working. So truly, I am just like, literally how? It was a different
And they
time.
were and they were living life.
Yeah.
They were traveling, going
Camping,
on
going on trips,
trips,
doing stuff.
sailing, I think.
Yeah.
I think they were into like, what how do you even fit 9 people in a anything to go anywhere?
You know,
I
that's a
just
good
don't know.
it's a good question. Like, what kind of car did they have? Oh,
Oh, no.
probably a station wagon. But yeah, that's wild. She talks about her early athletic pursuits. So starting out, I think, with swimming, and then getting into gymnastics, and then having this first experience climbing and really falling in love with it. Her first experience climbing was insane. I'm just like, what? It's a different time. Like, it was a
I
different
know.
time.
I can't imagine. I don't know that I would have been as receptive to climbing as I am now in the 70s. Like, I think I don't even know if there's stats on how many people died in the 70s
Yeah.
from those crazy ass harnesses, like, alone,
Yeah.
and the way they were belaying people.
Yeah.
Like, I would have never belayed anybody because I don't think I could hold anybody's weight. Like, I'm not doing no booty belays,
Right.
and I am not wearing a seatbelt harness.
Yeah.
Like, no, no, and no. Like, it's already the wild thing about it is it still is fairly dangerous. I think some company too just had one of their harnesses recalled.
Oh, wow.
And I don't want to say a company's name because I don't want it to be wrong and people come for me.
Yeah.
But it was, it's not risk free. Like, I
No.
think we all know that. We know that, but in the
Mm.
70s, y'all
Oh,
were wild.
living on a
Like,
prayer.
kudos.
Like, it's it's crazy. Yeah. So, yeah, just yeah, everything you said, I'm just like, yes, all of that is so true. And that's just like that was the norm. Um, so just thinking about the fact that, like, first of all, her sister Loki set her up like her sister is the one who had like more experience in climbing. I don't, it sounded like her sister did it to sort of appease her boyfriend at the time.
Yeah.
Her boyfriend
Yeah.
was this guy named Chuck, who ended up, I think, being Lynn's climbing mentor for a while. Um, and yeah, she was still technically more experienced. Like, she had at least been climbing before. Lynn had never gone climbing. This is like Joshua Tree back in the 70s, where the highest grade is like 10,511, I think, at that time, which is like
Mhm.
translates now to probably like a 513, 514, especially in California, where I've heard the climbing is just
Yeah.
like incredibly stout. And it was her
It is.
first climb. She led the climb, trad climb, traditional climbing. So she's placing her own protection. There's no fixed bolts or anything. Like, I'm just like, and it's crazy. I was also just thinking about, like, I don't like using the term beginner luck because I do feel like, she is obviously an incredibly talented climber. Like, she's a protege. I don't think there's anything lucky about her abilities. But I do think that there's this sort of like naivety that beginners can have where it's like, because she was so unfamiliar with the sport and probably unfamiliar with like the amount of risk involved, she just had like a certain amount, like a certain level of fearlessness that I think only like complete novices are like fortunate enough to have. um but yeah.
And I think that climb happened in chapter 3, but even still, her first experiences climbing were they just kinda, like, let her loose, like, "Hey, go up there and try this," and
Yeah.
I do think that gymnastics background really helped her,
Yeah.
and I do think a lot of people who get into climbing and were really into another sport
Mhm.
really excel and kinda like, it's an easier transition
Yeah,
into the sport, you
definitely.
know, I know the early days and this chapter isn't, like, I think, as interesting as the 1st and the 3rd chapter
Mhm.
during this week, but that 2nd chapter, I felt like really kinda dived into, her identity,
Yeah.
as a young girl, as a young woman, and being in a family where it was almost split boys and girls. I think there was maybe, 1 boy more than girls, and just recognizing at an early age that she, wasn't the girly girl,
Mhm.
and I think she even used the term tomboy, which is something that I used to refer to myself as because I didn't even put a dress on until I was a senior in high school, and
Oh.
I was so uncomfortable. Like, I was wildly uncomfortable that day having a dress on, and it's so nuanced now, like, everything is different now, but back then, like, you were really it's weird, "Why don't you wear dresses? What's wrong with you?" And made to be and feel like, you know, not that you're less than, but just that you're not all woman because you're not doing all these, like, feminine things,
Yeah.
and so I think that's something that really, like, connected for me was just her, even her just down to her reluctance to wanting to do the dishes. Like, why do we have to do the dishes and they just have to take out the trash? I'm
Mhm.
like, say word. Like, why can't y'all? I hate doing the dishes,
Yeah.
but and then things I couldn't relate to, like the camping trips.
Mhm.
I think I said last time I've never been to a national park. Like a lot of those family outdoorsy experiences. I know I was always outdoorsy.
Mhm.
I was climbing trees. I just didn't have the exposure to the outdoors like her family gave to them
Yeah, definitely.
in those early days.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, she talks a lot about, like so, yeah, you're right. So, that climb happened I think she gets more into climbing in the 3rd chapter, but she talks about her first experience towards the end of the 2nd chapter. But before that, she
Mhm.
definitely talks a lot about, just, like, the other athletic experiences she has. And I feel like she drops a lot of wisdom about, like, athletic performance that I feel like translates really well to climbing and life. And the 3 things that she kind of touched on that really stood out to me was, um I think she was the first thing she mentions is a swimming race that um where she really wanted to impress her coach. And so she tried really hard to like win and she finally I think she in her mind she technically won, but I believe she got disqualified. I can't remember exactly why, but the first kind of like lesson she touches on is don't let the desire to win interfere with performance. I have a climbing partner who kind of frames it as um, focus on performance and not the goal. So just try to
Mhm.
focus on like actually like executing your movement well, instead of like whatever the final goal is of finishing the climb. And then she touches on another uh, moment where she is learning, I think, how to do a cartwheel or maybe a particular type of flip in
Move.
gymnastics.
Yeah.
And she says her coach tells her to concentrate on 3 simple steps and kind of like break that movement down into like smaller pieces. I think she calls it chunking, but breaking that movement down
Mhm.
into smaller pieces. And it reminds me of like just how in climbing, you know, when you're projecting something, you it is a lot easier to, like, just say, "Okay, let me just figure out how I can get to that next hold, and, like, let me break this climb down into, like, smaller pieces," and that makes it a lot more tangible to complete your project when you think about it incrementally and, like, thinking about, "How can I just get past 1 step past where I am now, and then 1 step past that, and then 1 step past that?" And then the other thing that she kinda touches on is not letting fear interrupt your concentration once being committed to action. And I think that that is a huge, huge, huge thing.
Yeah.
Because yeah, when you're on the quote unquote sharp end, or when you're just like in the midst of a climb and your options are to either take a fall or get to the next piece of protection,
Yeah.
it is really easy to let that fear creep in, and you have to be able to like check it, because even if it is like legitimate fear, there are certain times where fear can only make things worse. Like, I think it's important
Mhm.
to maintain a healthy relationship with fear. And I think as much as possible, like assessing risk before you get yourself into a risky situation is the right way to go. But then once you're in that situation, it's like letting fear consume you is only counterproductive to like having a safe outcome. So yeah, I don't know. Just some interesting things that
Yeah.
came up.
Yeah, and that was the end of the 2nd chapter, and I think there's 2 climbs that she had, one that her sister was afraid to do, and she was also scared, but she just kinda, like, pushed on and made it,
Yeah.
and then there was another one in chapter 3 that we can talk about that she was like, "This is sketchy. No, I don't wanna do this climb."
Yeah.
But I do think fear can impact your ability to succeed, but also overconfidence can also do the same thing. It can make you a little bit more complacent. And so I kind of see both sides of it. I don't know that fear like being focused and trying to like squelch the fear and not letting it overtake you. I mean, there's a point where if you're so terrified that you're going to be shaking, then yeah, it's no longer safe
Hmm.
and you should just come down.
Hmm.
But there's times where you can think like, "Oh, this is fine, this is easy." But there's nothing like that relief when you are that terrified and you do make that clip and
Yeah.
you get it. Because 'Cause
Right.
I've done a climb like that, and it's usually slab where I feel that way, where I'm just like, "Oh my god, I just don't wanna slip. I don't wanna slip."
Yeah.
And that's all I'm trying not to think about, but that's all I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
So,
Totally. Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of like what I was sort of getting at, um, when just asking about like, because there's two things that come to mind when you say that. First of all, it's like, right, like definitely like overconfidence can lead to a certain level of complacency, which can be like really detrimental also. And I think that like perfect example of that is like the fall that Lynn took, like she's done this a million times. It's
yeah,
second
and it was
nature
a
to her.
warm-up.
Yeah.
It was a warm-up. It wasn't even a
It's
project
like
or
a
anything.
but but
It wasn't something that she was gonna fall on, that's
right.
all I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, totally. But I'm just thinking about like, right, like that is definitely true. But it's like, what about like when you're in between? What about when you're in between protection? You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, I've already kind of like I can try to down climb, which could
You've
be just
committed.
as dangerous as like trying to keep going. Like so now the fear is creeping in, but I have to kind of like compartmentalize it to a certain extent in order to be able to like get out of this situation safely. Like I think that
Mhm.
there's something there. Just something you said made me think of like just like that intuition aspect of it of like obviously like before you get yourself into that situation, the best thing you can do is kind of like know whether or not this is a risk that you want to take. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
how do you manage that risk? How do you know
Yeah.
if like how do you know if what you're like committing to? I think what I'm trying to say is like, how do you discern between like my intuition is telling me this is something I should not do versus this is a little bit scary, but I know that I'm like equipped with like the skills and the competence to like get through this.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious for those listening, like share your stories.
Yeah.
If you visit our website, linked in the show notes, you can leave us a voice note. I'm curious, how do you sort of gauge that dynamic?
Hmm.
I think you made a good point though, because when I did fall, I was at the clip
Hmm.
and so I couldn't down climb.
Right.
I mean, maybe I could have, but it would have been a really, really difficult down climb.
Hmm.
And my decision was I should have just hung on to the quick draw. But there is a point where the fear you can't go back.
Right.
And at New River Gorge, everything's placed 10 feet apart.
Ooh.
So it's like, that's going to be a 20-foot fall
Yeah.
with rope stretch. So I'm not, yeah, I mean, climbing's hard.
Yeah.
Let's just call it. It's hard. It's
It's
hard.
hard.
Even
It's hard, and
it's
I
just
think
hard.
that there is no, like, exact science to knowing when your intuition is trying to warn you about something and when because I think that fear is a valid emotion. Like, it is a valid experience, and it is there to,
Mhm.
like, give us information, and I think that it has to be taken into context with like a lot of other factors, like not just fear, but like your mood. Are you rested? Do you feel strong? Like, what's the weather conditions? Like, I think that like fear has to be taken into context with a lot of other information for us to kind of be able to make that decision of, is this my intuition warning me? And is this something I shouldn't do? Versus like, is this something that like I have the confidence and competence and the current ability to push through? Um, because yeah, that's like fear is, I think, part of climbing. And I think it has to be like, I think it's necessary to have fear when climbing. It's like a healthy level of respect for,
Yeah,
what you're
100%.
engaging in.
Chapter 3.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, chapter 3. So chapter 3 is called First Contact. Uh, and Lynn is just exploring climbing more deeply. She's dabbling and mountaineering and bouldering. She talks about finishing a climb with her partner where he struggled to get through the crux. I think he fell a couple of times on the crux and she was able to push through and get to that point. And that was the point where she mentions like there's like a bolt or not a bolt. There were maybe it was a bolt, I'm not sure, but there was something that she could have like hung on to like secure herself so that she could have made that clip and she decided not to because she
Mhm.
felt like it was bad practice. And I very much am in the same alignment with you, very much of the mentality that like I just want to get down safely. So whatever
Yeah.
I need to do to like make that happen, like I don't care if it's bad form or bad practice. Like I am starting to like, get to the point of feeling like it's just not that deep. And I think that some of the attitudes around climbing can be toxic in that way, but maybe that's a conversation for another day. But she talks about her first mountaineering experience and realizing that it wasn't for her, that mountaineering is just incredibly dangerous, and
Yeah.
that she doesn't need to court death or kind of glorify these near death experiences in order to get fulfillment and enjoyment out of climbing. Um, and she also kind of touches on getting her first taste of misogyny in climbing. So, like, experiencing men who are like jealous or bitter that they can't do things that she can.
Yeah.
Um,
It's because you got little hands. You got little feet, little hands.
yeah, like, just
Yeah.
like, I can't
Oh,
do that.
men.
It's like, okay, well, just be better. Like,
Yeah.
um,
Like, my legs don't go that way. How you legs only women legs do that. That's why you could do it. Like, shut up.
okay, right.
Goodbye.
But yeah, I mean, it sounded like you were pretty excited about this pretty engaging. So yeah, I mean, I'm curious to hear like what things stood out to you.
I mean, what stood out to me for this was, well, A, this is when she kinda, like, locked in a climbing partner. Like,
Mhm.
Chuck is officially now, like, this is my dude. We climbing because Kathy ain't really trying to climb. Her
Kathy,
sister was
get
just
out
like
of
you
here.
said. Kathy was just, like, being the girl, like, let's go climbing. And there's girls out there now that go to the climbing gym knowing they don't want to be there, but their guys are into climbing. So like, let's do this thing together.
Mhm.
And some fall for it and really get into it and some don't. But she really solidified that. But yo, what stood out to me, I don't know if you've ever been to Joshua Tree, but she
No.
talks about the climb that she did at Joshua's Tree, called Trespassers Will Be Violated. Now, I've only been bouldering in Joshua Tree.
So you have been to a
They,
national park. Were you
oh,
in
but not as a child, but yes.
okay.
I guess technically then, yes, I have. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. It was after my injury.
Uh-huh.
But okay, fine, 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 fine. Yes, I've been to a national park. See, that's the thing. I don't even know what is a national park. Anyway, but Joshua Tree is hard AF,
Heard.
period.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's gotten any easier. Maybe it has. But I've only been there for bouldering. But yo, that climb she did. I don't know if you remember the description, but I wrote it down because it was like I just think about when I climbed at New River Gorge and how the boats were spaced, and we know that a lot of these routes were set by tall white men, let's
Mhm.
just be real, and as someone who's been developing routes, I need more space. I need more boats, y'all. I
Mhm.
cannot. But that climb she did in 1976, trespassers will be violated. I don't know what it's like now. This thing said 3 bolts in 80 feet of
Oh
climbing.
my god. At that point, it's like, what's
No,
the point? Just free
I
solo.
don't. It's that's what it is. I don't even care if it's a 5-4. I am not.
Yeah.
No, no, you got me all the way messed up. So it's just wild to me. And I mean, yeah, she did things that a lot of men at that time couldn't even do, which
Yeah.
for me it was like, yes, go do that. Like run through these fools. And so I just celebrated that, but it still blows my mind how unsafe a lot of routes are
Yeah.
and have been, and it was about pushing the limits, and you'll see this all on chats and threads, especially if you get into route development like I
Mhm.
have. People will be like, if you want all those boats, go to a gym. And it's like, oh, so we're not allowed to climb outside because we want to be safe
Right.
and go home with our limbs and or be alive.
Mhm.
Like
You see this you said on Threads. Is that on Mountain Project too? Or like you mean like
that's what I
social
meant.
media?
I didn't mean Threads, the
Okay.
social media site. I
Okay,
meant
okay.
yes, Mountain
Yes.
Project. But
Yeah.
not even mostly Mountain Project because that's where my routes are posted. And so
Right.
people, when they comment on my routes, I get an email that they had to tell me that my routes are like climbing in a gym. I don't care. You
Right.
cannot
You don't
climb
have
it.
to
You
climb
can
it.
you can and you can skip 3 to 4, 5,
You
6,
can also
as
do
many
that.
bolts as you want. You like
Yeah.
do
Ooh,
do you, bro.
I think we
Do you.
reserve an episode for like ranting about
Yeah.
the toxicity of climbing culture. We could save that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I have so
Yeah.
many feelings when you say this, but I'm so sorry for
I
interrupting.
know, and we're totally running out of time, so I don't wanna go too deep into it, but what I will say is kind of a little bit how this chapter wraps up, and where this chapter resonates with me the most is when she says she kinda used climbing as therapy,
Mm,
and even Chuck talks about sort of this spiritual connection
mhm,
with climbing.
mhm,
I felt the same way my first time climbing. It felt
mm.
otherworldly. It felt spiritual. I'm not as deep as Chuck was. Now Chuck was really kind of on the woo woo train, but I think it's just so fascinating how, and I don't know, maybe y'all can tell us what other sports do this, but like how escapism climbing is, like
Mhm,
how you can really just like sink into this thing you're doing because you know you have to focus on this one thing.
mhm,
And it's so hard for our brains to shut off. Like I used to like to run, and my brain would be like wired. When I'm running, I would be pulling out
mhm,
my phone, taking notes. I'd have ideas. Like I couldn't just shut my brain off when I'm running.
mhm.
And even when I'm swimming, I can't. Like it's just fascinating that it's the only thing for me that I can think of where I can truly shut my brain off. And I've always wished I could get into meditation
Mhm.
and truly meditation, cuz let's be real, we can try to meditate, but to quiet your mind completely, I've only really been able to do through climbing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I do feel like it is a very sort of like intense. Man, it doesn't have to be intense, but definitely like a moving meditation. And I agree. Like I've tried to sit and do the whole like, focus on your breath, like let the thoughts pass away, like, but it's never really worked for me. And I do feel like climbing is the one thing that like climbing, I think even because I'm thinking about like things like even like gardening and that sort of thing. And even gardening, it is easy to let your mind wander and get distracted. But truly with climbing, I think it's like there is a you have like for your own safety and to like because some of the movement can be so like delicate and so specific, it kind of snatches it like it yanks your attention
Mhm.
right to it. which is nice. Like I really like that part about it.
Yeah,
And I usually end
same.
up feeling better. Like if I'm having like a really crappy day and I can just like get out and like just try hard on something and like focus intently on something else, it does like help me feel better. So there were a lot of things that stood out to me in this chapter. Also, I think that like just the risk management and the just having a sort of reverence for nature was a really interesting thing that she kind of called out, because I do feel like there is just something about the culture of climbing that like it almost feels like your worth as a climber is determined by your willingness or your desire to take things to a certain extreme. Like, you know, you're a real climber if you can like push yourself in this way or that way. You're a real climber if you don't hang dog. You're a real climber if you know, like if you can on site things or whatever. And I don't know, it really resonated with me, and I really appreciated hearing someone as badass as Lynn Hill say, "I don't need to court death in order to get something out of climbing. Like, I don't need to, like,
Yeah.
traumatize myself every time I, like, step out onto the rock to, like, feel like I'm getting something out of climbing." And just to hear, because I do think that it's a very masculine sort of approach.
Mentality.
Yeah,
Hmm.
to, like, feel like you need to conquer the wall or you need to, like, conquer this sport in some way. And I think that, like, what she brings or what she sort of, like what she's kind of saying in so many words is that she has, like, a healthy sort of reverence for nature and a healthy reverence for, like, the rock, and I don't know, that stood out to me a lot because I sometimes feel like, especially, like, a lot of the people I climb with are men, and just, yeah, this feeling of just feeling like I need to prove something almost to nature. And it's like, girl, nature's gonna win every time. She's gonna win
Every
every
time.
time. Um
That's why I am the mother. I am the mother of the nature.
oh, you bitches is my
Yeah.
son. We don't have to curse.
Yes, we can
Um,
do whatever we want. It's our podcast.
so yeah, I don't know. That stood out to me. I think that meant a lot to me. And then also just thinking about like the misogyny and the sexism she encountered with climbing. Like I felt like that was really interesting.
And I feel like that theme is going to continue. That
Definitely.
theme is going to continue.
Yeah, like how can it not? Which is crazy,
Yeah.
Like, I was actually watching an episode of her on not Jay Leno. He's kind of skinny with like curly hair. He was
Cohen?
no
No.
Jerry
Uh,
some oh
Seinfeld? No.
no.
Look, we just getting worse.
Oh my God. Hold on. I'm about to find out. Uh, Letterman, David Letterman. I was not
Oh,
going to
yeah,
get that.
that one.
But there were like some slightly like sexual kind of connotations that he was making when she was trying to tie in his harness and check his knot and like, all of this stuff. And it was like kind of, it gave me the ick a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like even at this point, she's an accomplished climber. She's on television shows, like talking about her sport, and she still can't really get the respect that a man would get. Like you wouldn't make these sexual comments or innuendos with a man. Like it
Yeah.
was disgusting. But yeah, I mean it's just interesting. Like she touches on how her sister felt like, when they didn't want to climb the route, right? In the third chapter, her sister
Hmm.
tells her boyfriend, like, oh, well, she just got sick. And you know how girls get sick and how she kind of like has to
Yeah.
sort of like tap into like this feminine weakness almost. Um,
And she's like, why can't we just tell them the truth?
yeah, like
Like,
we just didn't want to
what's
do
the
it.
big deal?
But it's this weird like tightrope that I feel like women have to walk of like you want to feel brave, you want to appear brave, you want to appear competent, but you can't be too competent. You can't be too good. Because on the other hand,
Yeah.
like she also gets like some hate and some shade from men for like being able to like send their projects or being able to like
Yeah.
accomplish things that they can't. And so it's like, I don't know, it feels like on either side, it's not okay.
Damned if
Like,
you do, damned if you don't.
yeah,
That's what it is. That's literally being a woman,
yeah,
in especially in America. So it is. I I just like that she was so vocal and so authentic.
Yeah.
And these first 3 chapters just made that I think that's why I wanted to read this book because I think this is about as far as I got the first time I read it.
Mhm,
And it was just like she really stood in who she was and
mhm,
didn't really have to hide it. And that was consistent
mhm.
throughout her career. So I'm excited,
Yeah.
honestly, to continue on. Now what are we reading for next episode? What chapters are we reading for the next one?
Episode, we'll be chatting about chapters 4 through 6. I'm super excited to get into it. I think she's gonna get deeper into kind of like some of the work that she's done in Yosemite, and I don't even know. I'm looking at some of the climbs she's done in Joshua Tree. I'm just looking at the titles of the chapters. But yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited. I'm very excited.
more climbing heavy. Yeah, I think we'll definitely talk more about just climbing, I think, in these next few chapters. And again, we want y'all to join us on this journey. So if you don't have the book, head to your local library, head to a local bookstore. Please don't head to the internet if you can help it, unless it is an independent bookstore. And get the book, read with us, join our book club on our website. You can visit firstoutdoor.co and yeah, just join this journey with us.
Yeah.
We are really excited to explore this book and more books, and let us know what books you want us to read. Please make sure you follow our podcast wherever you listen or watch podcasts. Definitely tell a friend to tell a friend, because you know it's a really great way to rest between those hard climbs that you're
Mhm.
doing. So just pick up a book, take a proper break,
Yeah.
and get back out there. So,
Cool.
yeah, this has been fun. And yeah, Melanie, I look forward to these next few.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to get into the discussion. I'm hooked in. I'm locked in. So I'm excited to keep going and hear more about her journey.
Books and Boulders, an adventure podcast produced by First Outdoor Company for climbers, readers, and everyone in between. Subscribe now and join the BB Book Club.